The 1980s was an era where corporations bet millions of dollars on crazy ideas. After every brilliant success, there were dozens of products released to the market with massive fanfare and advertising, only to be completely buried in the past. We will flip through the memories and explore 25 products with brilliant ideas that still failed entirely. One of the most remembered marketing blunders of all time occurred in April 1985. After nearly a century of loyalty to its secret formula, the beverage giant changed it and introduced New Coke. This move was not a hasty decision. The company spent millions of dollars on market research, organizing thousands of taste tests. In blind tests, New Coke, with its sweeter and smoother taste, consistently won against the original formula and even its perennial rival Pepsi. The data was clear. The new flavor was better and consumers would love it. However, Coca-Cola overlooked a fundamental factor. No one asked for this change. Public reaction was immediate and fierce. Coca-Cola's phone lines were overloaded with angry customers who felt as though a part of their personal memories and cultural identity had been stolen. Consumers hoarded cans of the old formula, and protest groups were even organized. The backlash was so strong that Coca-Cola could not withstand the sustained pressure. The company was forced to publicly admit its mistake and bring the original formula back after only 76 days. Before DVD or Blu-ray existed, there was an ambitious format poised to revolutionize home video: LaserDisc. This was a disc the size of an LP vinyl record, but it contained movies with image and sound quality determined to be far superior to its rival VHS. LaserDisc did not degrade with use, and technically, it was the absolute winner in the quality war. However, superior technology does not always lead to commercial success. LaserDisc failed for very simple practical reasons. LaserDisc players cost a fortune compared to conventional VHS cassette players. The movie discs were very large, bulky, and fragile. Users had to perform the rather annoying action of flipping the disc mid-movie, like a DJ switching tracks. You also could not record on LaserDisc. The ability to record favorite TV shows was a priceless feature that VHS offered, and LaserDisc lacked this basic functionality. LaserDisc only found a small niche among cinema enthusiasts willing to pay a high price for peak image quality, and it was slightly more successful in Japan than in the American market. For the general public, it was too expensive and impractical. The British inventor Sir Clive Sinclair introduced the Sinclair C5, a product heavily advertised as the personal electric transport of the future. Essentially, the C5 was an electric tricycle with a lightweight plastic body, marketed as an efficient personal mobility solution for modern cities. The dream of revolutionizing transport soon collapsed due to fundamental design flaws and an appearance that many described as completely ridiculous. The biggest problem was safety. The driver sat almost on the ground, just inches from the road surface. This extremely low position made it difficult for large cars to see the C5 in traffic, creating extremely dangerous situations. Additionally, the C5 had no roof, so the driver would be soaked when it rained. Its performance was also extremely weak. The battery life was short, and the C5 had deadly difficulties overcoming small slopes. Its maximum speed only reached 15 miles per hour. Sinclair set high expectations, hoping to sell millions of units through a massive advertising campaign. However, the harsh reality was that they only sold under 17,000 units before being forced to stop production in the same year, causing millions of dollars in losses and severely damaging Sir Clive Sinclair's reputation. This failure is ironic, because the idea of a compact electric car for the city was not bad at all. 4 decades later, we see the rise of electric scooters and similar personal vehicles. Gullwing Doors are most famous thanks to the legendary DeLorean DMC-12 car, which provided a completely futuristic and stylish appearance. Upon seeing these doors open, one immediately thinks of spacecraft technology and uniqueness. However, in everyday life, Gullwing door technology was a commercial failure and an impractical design for the vast majority of users. Although very impressive, they posed the most serious safety problem. If the car unfortunately flipped over, passengers risked being completely trapped inside because they could not generate enough force to push the door up, posing a life threat. Besides that safety risk, the issue of daily practicality was also a major barrier. Gullwing doors required ample extra space on the sides to open fully. This made them extremely inconvenient in crowded parking lots where the doors could not be raised, making entry and exit difficult. Furthermore, manufacturing and maintaining the complex hydraulic mechanism of gullwing doors was very expensive. Even the DeLorean DMC-12 experienced quality issues with these doors. They often jammed or did not operate as smoothly as expected. The electric doormat was a trend attempting to add electronic technology to everything, even the simplest items, to turn them into products of the future. This invention was the effort of German engineers who created a motorized doormat designed to automatically clean shoes when the user stepped onto it. Their goal was to provide maximum convenience, completely removing dirt without the user having to rub their feet. The story sounds appealing on paper, but in the actual market, the electric doormat failed miserably. The reason for failure was not that it didn't work, but its redundancy and unreasonable cost. Installing the motor, cleaning system, and electronic components drove the product price exorbitantly high, an unacceptable price for such a simple functional item. It was also too complicated compared to the traditional competitor. Traditional doormats operate simply, efficiently, require no electricity, no maintenance, and most importantly, are extremely cheap. To clean the electric doormat, users might have to dismantle mechanical components or dispose of electronic waste, while a regular doormat only needs to be shaken or rinsed with water. Did you enjoy this trip down memory lane? Don't forget to hit the hype button below to help our channel grow. In the 80s, as business professionals began carrying important and sometimes secret documents, the demand for personal security increased, leading to the introduction of the Briefcase Alarm device. This was a security device designed to be integrated into a briefcase, intended to protect those documents from theft. Its mechanism was quite dramatic. If the briefcase was stolen or fell into the hands of a thief, the owner could enter a secret code to activate the system. Once activated, the briefcase would immediately spray a cloud of red smoke or a blurring dye on the thief's vision, and simultaneously emit a blaring alarm sound. Theoretically, this was a powerful deterrent, both drawing public attention and neutralizing the thief. But this product never became popular. The biggest reason for failure lay in unintended risk. A thief might be stunned by the smoke, but what would happen if the owner accidentally triggered the system due to confusion or a technical error? The red smoke or dye could permanently damage the important or expensive documents inside the briefcase. Consumers were unwilling to trade the safety of their documents for an alarm system that risked self-destructing their own assets. Furthermore, briefcases integrated with this system were often bulky, heavier, and had a higher cost. Among the strangest product failures, Colgate Lasagna cannot be ignored. It is one of the strangest and most misguided product choices in business history. The global giant famous for toothpaste and personal hygiene products made a move no one could have anticipated. They decided to enter the frozen food market. One of the products launched was Colgate Lasagna. The company's core idea was to leverage Colgate's strong brand recognition. They believed that since consumers trusted the Colgate name in the bathroom, they would also trust it in the kitchen. However, this assumption led to a marketing disaster due to massive brand conflict. Consumers could not separate the name Colgate from mint smell, clean feeling, and oral hygiene products. Seeing a box of frozen lasagna bearing the Colgate brand created an unpleasant and bizarre association. Customers could not imagine eating a warm dish linked to the act of brushing teeth. The confusion between hygiene and food prevented almost everyone from purchasing this product. Colgate's lasagna failed miserably. Stores were reluctant to stock it, and it was quickly pulled from the market. Coleco, the company behind the resounding success of the ColecoVision game console, decided to bet big on the booming personal computer market with the launch of the Coleco Adam in 1983. In theory, the Adam was a perfect product, positioned to compete directly with the Commodore 64 and Apple II. It was sold as a complete computer system, bundled with a printer and at a competitive price, promising a comprehensive solution for the family. However, a technical disaster occurred right from the launch day. Coleco rushed the release to meet the year-end shopping season, and this haste led to loose quality control procedures. The Adam's product failure rate was extremely alarming. It is estimated that 30% to 50% of units were broken right out of the box or quickly failed within the first few weeks of use. The problem was worsened by the bundled printer, which provided power to the entire system, yet generated severe electromagnetic interference. This interference was capable of wiping out data on floppy disks placed near the machine, an almost destructive design flaw. Besides technical flaws, the Adam also suffered from an identity crisis. Coleco was unclear in positioning the product. Was the Adam a computer for gaming or a serious productivity tool? As a result, it was stuck in the middle, satisfying neither professional gamers nor being reliable enough for professionals. Coleco lost millions of dollars trying to fix these issues. The 80s saw McDonald's, the fast food giant, trying to solve a problem they believed was affecting product quality, temperature contrast. They argued that placing cold lettuce and tomatoes next to the hot beef patty reduced the overall experience. Their solution was the McDonald's lettuce and tomato, McDLT. This burger was designed to offer a fresher feel by keeping the hot part, the meat patty, and the cold part, vegetables, tomatoes, completely separate in a large styrofoam container. In terms of flavor, the McDLT might have been fine. However, this design failed because it went completely against what customers expected from fast food. Customers had to assemble their own burger. People go to McDonald's for speed and convenience. They want a ready-made meal. Having to take ingredients out of the box and create their own burger was seen as an added chore or even homework, not to mention the environmental issues. The McDLT required bulky, wasteful packaging and used a large amount of styrofoam. This occurred at a time when the public was becoming more environmentally conscious. Consumers were unhappy with generating so much waste for one meal. Which of these products did you use and were disappointed with? Share your experience below. Lifesavers, the famous ring-shaped candy brand with many sweet and bright flavors, decided to take a bold step in the 80s, turn their candy into a carbonated drink. The idea sounded interesting and colorful on paper. The company hoped that Lifesavers candy fans would enjoy sipping a soda with a sweet, rich flavor exactly like their favorite snack. With recognizable branding and bright colors, Lifesavers Soda was launched onto the market. However, the reality was completely different. The flavor that worked well on a small piece of candy you sucked on became a disaster when it was scaled up into a large bottle of soda. The core problem was the sweetness. Lifesavers. Soda was too sweet, too concentrated, and lacked the necessary balance of a soft drink. Most people could only drink a few sips before feeling overwhelmed. It did not provide the refreshing feeling consumers expected from a soda. Customers wanted a soft drink, but Lifesavers Soda offered an experience more like drinking melted candy. Even with strong branding and appealing packaging, this product failed to attract customers. Stores quickly pulled it from shelves, and the company abandoned the idea. Flavor balance is paramount for the soft drink market. The RCA Selectavision video disc is one of the biggest financial failures in consumer electronics history. RCA, a technology giant, spent 17 years and invested over $500 million, equivalent to billions of dollars today, developing this video disc system. CED was launched in 1981 with the expectation of dominating the home video market. This system used discs that looked like giant vinyl LPs containing movies, but unlike LaserDisc, which used lasers, Selectavision used a physical needle to read the microscopic grooves on the disc. Essentially, it was a phonograph for movies. The system suffered from serious technical problems. The picture quality was inferior to VHS. The discs were easily scratched, and even a little dust could ruin the film, due to the physical needle reading mechanism. Also, users could not record. The biggest problem was the terrible launch timing. CED was introduced in 1981, Just as VHS and Betamax had firmly established the market, and video players were rapidly dropping in price. Consumers saw no reason to buy a new system that was less flexible, had poorer quality, and lacked recording functionality when better and more convenient options were already available. Sales were disastrously low. RCA hoped to sell millions of units, but only sold fewer than 1 million units in 3 years. In 1984, the company had to admit defeat and ceased production, incurring heavy losses. Polaroid, the company that made its name with instant cameras, decided to apply this technology to video, leading to the launch of Polavision in 1977. This system promised something great: instant video, allowing users to shoot and develop home movies in just 3 minutes at home. The idea sounded genius, but it turned out to be a huge financial failure, almost pushing Polaroid to the brink of bankruptcy. The fundamental problem lay in the format and timing. Polavision used special cartridges containing 8mm film chemically processed inside the player. Each cartridge only recorded 2.5 minutes of video, and worse, the video was silent. Each of these cartridges was also extremely expensive. The worst part was the timing. Polavision launched just as home video cameras using VHS and Betamax tapes were flooding the market. These competitors allowed users to record hours of video with sound at a much lower cost per minute than Polavision. This comparison was devastating for Polaroid. The company invested millions of dollars in research and marketing, but the public rejected the product. In 1979, just 2 years after its launch, Polavision was forced to cease production with massive losses. In 1982, Kodak, a leading name in the photography industry, launched the Kodak Disc 4000 with the ambition to change how people took pictures. This camera was very compact, easy to carry, and extremely simple to use. Instead of traditional film rolls, users only needed to insert a round film disc into the camera and press the button. It even had automatic film winding. Initially, consumers loved the modern style and convenience of this new camera. The biggest problem that ruined its chance of success lay in terrible photo quality. The negatives on this film disc were too small. This made them unable to capture clear details. The consequence was that the photos taken were often blurry, lacking detail, and dark. For consumers, the main purpose of photography is to preserve high-quality memories, and poor image quality became a major disappointment. Furthermore, photo labs also struggled to process this type of film disc, adding to the inconvenience. Although Kodak tried to promote this idea for a while, the poor photo quality overshadowed all other utilities. The Disc 4000 quickly faded and became proof that convenience and design cannot compensate for failure in the product's core performance. The ItalDesign Capsula was a bold and ambitious concept from the legendary Italian design company aimed at addressing the need for a flexible means of transport. The core idea of the capsula was to create a modular vehicle capable of changing its entire function, depending on the owner's needs. It was envisioned as a car that could quickly change its personality. For instance, one day it could be a spacious van, ready to transport furniture or heavy goods. But with just a quick swap of the upper body, capsule, it could transform into a sleek sports car. This concept was partly inspired by the popularity of Transformers toys in the 80s, making many wonder if a real vehicle could transform in such a way. The goal of Capsula was to create a truly flexible automobile, appealing to everyone from families to businesses and speed enthusiasts. Although the concept was extremely innovative and ahead of its time, however, the Capsula never achieved widespread popularity. The main reason was that technology at the time was not advanced enough for the functional conversion to be easy, safe, and low cost as promised. The Capsula remained only an interesting vision, but its idea is still valuable and could be resurrected thanks to modern advances in modular design and electric vehicle technology. This is perhaps the most legendary and famous failure in 1980s history, a game that many blame for causing the collapse of the video game industry in 1983. Atari, at the peak of its power, paid millions of dollars for the rights to the game E.T. the Extraterrestrial, the most successful film of all time then. They expected this game to print money. Atari also made a fatal mistake. To meet the Christmas 1982 release date, they gave the developer only 5 weeks to program, design, test, and release the game. The result was an absolute disaster. The ET game on Atari 2600 was confusing, frustrating, and boring. The character ET constantly fell into hard-to-escape pits. The objectives were unclear, and the controls were clumsy. The game did not recapture the magic of the movie. Children who received this game for Christmas 1982 were deeply disappointed. Atari produced millions of cartridges expecting record sales, but only sold a fraction. Masses of products were returned, piling up in Atari's warehouses. Ultimately, the company buried millions of unsold cartridges in landfills. This event has become a legend in gamer culture. Sony's Betamax was at the center of the most famous technology format war of the 80s, the battle between Betamax and VHS. Betamax, launched by Sony in 1975, was recognized as technically superior to VHS. It offered higher video quality and had a more compact player design. However, this is a classic demonstration that the best technology doesn't always win. VHS overwhelmingly won the market for reasons unrelated to image quality. The first decisive factor was recording length. VHS tapes could record up to 4 or even 6 hours on a single cassette, which was perfect for recording multiple TV shows or an entire long movie. Conversely, Betamax initially only recorded about 1 hour. This forced users to swap tapes midway through a long film, a major inconvenience. The second factor was content and distribution. VHS secured strong support from Hollywood studios and video rental stores. The vast majority of rental films were available on the VHS format, while Betamax had very few options. When consumers went to the video club and saw the number of titles on VHS was 10 times greater, the decision to purchase a VHS player was obvious. Although Sony attempted to extend Betamax's recording time, it was too late. The Nissan Pulsar Sportback NX, launched in 1987, was an attempt to create a revolutionary versatile vehicle. Nissan's idea was to create a car that could be 2 cars in one. Its unique design allowed the driver to switch between a sleek sports coupe and a small mini wagon by utilizing a modular rear hatch. This was a bold and futuristic idea, demonstrating the risk-taking and innovation of the 80s. However, this boldness was not welcomed by the market, because the overall design looked strange. Combining contrasting forms created a car with a disjointed appearance, neither truly beautiful as a coupe nor truly practical as a van. Its purpose was confusing to buyers. Consumers were unsure whether they were buying a sports car for recreation or a practical vehicle for hauling goods. This identity confusion caused the car to be seen more as a novelty product than a serious transportation solution. Furthermore, the additional cost for the Sportback option did not help improve sales. Sales of the Pulsar NX Sportback remained low, and the model quickly disappeared. Nissan took a risk with the modular design, but the market at the time was not ready for a car with constantly changing personalities and a confusing appearance. The Atari 5200 was launched with the clear goal of being the powerful successor to the legendary Atari 2600 system, which had dominated the home game market. On paper, the 5200 was a significant step forward. It had better graphics, higher processing power, and a more modern design. In reality, however, it was a technical disaster that contributed significantly to the collapse of the video game industry in 1983. The biggest problem, and the main reason for failure, was the controller. The 5200's controller was analog instead of digital. Although analog sounds more advanced in practice, they were extremely inaccurate, constantly off-center, and prone to breakage. Trying to play games that required precision became a desperately frustrating experience for users. Additionally, the 5200 made another fatal mistake. It was not backward compatible with the massive Atari 2600 game library. This meant the collection of old games users had accumulated became useless, forcing them to buy new games, which were expensive and few in number initially. The machine's design was also considered bulky and impractical. Sales of the 5200 were very disappointing, and it was discontinued in 1984, just 2 years after launch. Do you have any stories about other failures we haven't mentioned? Feel free to add to the list. IBM, the giant of the business computing world, decided to jump into the growing home computer market with the launch of the PCjr in 1984. Their goal was to bring the credibility and quality of the IBM brand to every family. The PCjr looked nice and had some appealing features, but it quickly failed. The biggest issue, which caused consumer outrage, was the keyboard. The PCjr was equipped with a small, difficult-to-type keyboard, mockingly referred to as the chiclet keyboard, because its keys were small, square, and felt cheap. This keyboard did not live up to IBM's reputation for quality and reliability. The second issue was compatibility. Many popular personal computer programs did not work correctly on the PCjr. This caused confusion and reduced user confidence in the product. Although IBM tried to fix these problems, the reputation was severely damaged. Furthermore, the machine was also overpriced for a home computer, especially when it failed to meet expectations for performance and compatibility. Before the Macintosh made history, Apple introduced the Lisa in 1983, a computer considered revolutionary and ahead of its time. Lisa introduced concepts that we take for granted today. The graphical user interface, GUI, with windows, a mouse, and icons. Technically, it was the technology of the future. However, Lisa was a catastrophic commercial failure. The biggest cause of failure was the exorbitant price. Lisa cost $10,000 in 1983. This extraordinary price placed it out of reach for typical consumers and small businesses. Only large corporations could consider it, but they already had stable traditional computer systems and saw no reason to switch. Did you know its performance was quite slow? Despite having advanced hardware, Lisa's graphical operating system demanded too much processing power, causing applications to run at a painfully slow speed. Valuable lessons about technology, marketing, and product pricing were applied by Steve Jobs a year later with the Macintosh, using the same revolutionary technology but at a more reasonable price. The Commodore Amiga 500 was hailed as one of the most advanced home computers of its era. It boasted superior features in graphics, sound, and multitasking capabilities, making it ideal for games, animation, and creative applications. Despite its excellent and promising technology, the Amiga encountered technical and strategic problems that hampered its mass-market success. You can see it lacked memory protection. This meant that programs could easily interfere with and crash the entire system, causing inconvenience and data loss for users. Early Amiga models required many different boot disks just to operate, making the usage process cumbersome and slow. Although the Amiga was powerful, the lack of popular business and utility software led consumers to turn to simpler and more reliable personal computers. Commodore later released models by removing useful features and confusing buyers, resulting in a product that was difficult to use, lacked power, or was incomplete. The Timex Sinclair 1000, launched in 1982, had an incredibly high goal: to bring the power of computing closer to everyone by becoming one of the cheapest home computers ever built. With a price tag under $100, it achieved its goal of accessibility. It had a black and white screen, 2 kilobytes of random access memory, and used cassette tapes to load programs. Although initial sales were good due to the unprecedented low price. The Timex Sinclair 1000 failed due to a series of serious design and performance flaws. It was very slow and extremely limited in its processing capabilities. Second, it used a membrane keyboard. This type of keyboard was flat, lacked clear tactile feedback, causing great discomfort and frustration for users trying to type or program. Third, to run most useful software, users needed to purchase external memory, which increased the cost and reduced the initial price advantage. Competitors like the Commodore 64, although more expensive, offered significantly better power and features. Although an upgraded 16 kilobyte version was launched, it could not salvage the situation. The Timex Sinclair 1000 quickly fell behind in the market, proving that even the lowest price cannot compensate for poor user experience and limited performance. Clackers are a unique case in this list of failures because they did not fail due to lack of sales, but because they were too dangerous. This toy consisted of two hard acrylic balls connected by a string, and players would swing them to make them collide above and below the hand, creating the addictive, characteristic clack, clack, clack sound. Clackers quickly became an 80s phenomenon. Every child wanted them, and their characteristic clicking echoed across schoolyards. However, the fun quickly turned into serious accidents. When the two acrylic balls repeatedly collided at high speed and force, they began to crack and eventually shattered. When they broke, they exploded into sharp fragments flying in all directions. Hospitals began reporting cases of children injured by acrylic shards flying into their eyes, faces, and hands. The U.S. Consumer Product Safety Commission had to intervene. Premier is remembered as one of the most expensive product failures in the history of the tobacco industry. In the late 80s, as awareness of the harmful effects of cigarette smoke grew, R.J. Reynolds invested a huge sum of up to around $325 million to create a revolution in the tobacco industry. That product was Premier, a smokeless cigarette. Instead of burning tobacco in the traditional way, Premier used a heated carbon tip to toast the tobacco, releasing nicotine vapor instead of harmful smoke, aiming to provide a cleaner experience. This idea was extremely bold and was considered the first step toward e-cigarettes and modern heated tobacco products. Although RJR spent millions of dollars, the product had fundamental flaws in the user experience. The flavor was criticized as terrible, tasting like charcoal and smelling like burnt plastic. The sensation of smoking it was also very odd. Additionally, Premier's design looked strange and was uncomfortable to use in public. The combination of poor flavor, unnatural sensation, and embarrassing appearance led consumers to reject the product. 25 bizarre 1970s products that turned magic into mayhem. The 1970s were a wild time when we blindly believed every ad that promised life change. Forget the disco floor, let's face the hair that looked like a confused mushroom, the polyester pants that turned you into a slow cooker, or the torture sandals. Today, we're flipping back through some of the most disastrous flops that once promised miracles but delivered pure chaos. Let's see if you were ever a victim of one of these classic fails. Prell shampoo. This shampoo promised that absolute cleanliness was the path to healthy, shiny hair. Prell shampoo, that bright, almost radioactive green liquid. When squeezed from the tube or bottle, it resembled thick, gooey sludge. It lathered terribly, creating such a massive mountain of foam that you could use it to wash a station wagon. The advertisements promised incredible body and shine. Its container looked great in the shower caddy, conveying a sense of artificial cleanliness and convenience. But Prell was a green bomb that fried your hair dry. It cleaned so thoroughly that your scalp practically gave up on oil production. Just one wash with Prell, and you were stripped of every trace of natural life in your hair. The squeaky clean feeling after washing sounded good, but it was actually the cry for help from the hair follicles, as they were stripped of all essential oils. The result was dry, static split ends that lasted for days. Your hair would be so dry that when you touched it, it made a small, dry sound, like the crisp sound of failure. At this point, you could slick your hair up, and it would stand straight up as if you'd been electrocuted. Although the bottle looked attractive, your hair would need therapy after just one rinse with Prell. It is proof that sometimes excessive cleanliness is a disaster, turning voluminous hair into an unmanageable dry mess. Jumpsuits. Jumpsuits were the dream of sleekness and style. They were a symbol of confident style with a polished, put-together look achieved with just one zipper. People wore them because they wanted to look fashionable and as if they had sorted out their lives. They represented maximum convenience in fashion that required no mixing and matching of tops and bottoms. The fashion version of a trust fall, where you entrusted your entire dignity to one zipper. But all that illusion of neatness shattered the moment nature called. Going to the bathroom while wearing a jumpsuit, especially in a public restroom, was like escaping an escape room. You would find yourself half undressed, struggling with zippers and snaps, while desperately trying not to let the pant legs touch the public restroom floor. It was a crisis-ridden, undignified balancing act. And if you were tall, the disaster doubled. Most jumpsuits resulted in a permanent wedgie and left cold wrists exposed. Many of us came down to earth with a painful bump when participating in this risky fashion trend. Jumpsuits prove that convenience isn't always comfortable, especially when it conflicts with basic human needs. Clairol Yogurt Shampoo. In the late 1970s, the natural ingredient trend exploded, fueling a desire for cleaner, healthier lifestyles. Clairol decided to join the game with a creamier approach. In 1979, they launched Yogurt Shampoo, based on the idea that if yogurt was good for the body, it must be great for the hair. The product packaging was designed to look natural, with light colors and images of yogurt, making it look more like a snack than a hair care product. And that's where everything went wrong. Consumers were genuinely confused. Clairol went so natural that the product became ambiguous. Some people thought it was real yogurt. Many didn't know whether to pour it on their hair or into a bowl with fruit. There were even reports of people trying to eat it. Imagine opening your refrigerator and having to determine whether this jar was for dessert or for washing your hair. Although Clairol had good intentions, yogurt shampoo was a major marketing failure. The product did not perform exceptionally well, and consumer confusion caused it to be quickly pulled from the shelves. If you've watched a few of our videos and liked them, could you hit the subscribe button? Seeing that small number grow really helps motivate me to keep bringing these memories back and keep this nostalgia community alive. 8-track tape cleaning kits. You know, 8-track tapes were indispensable in cars and at home. This was the era of bulky tapes that often broke or suffered sound degradation after multiple uses. Companies saw a golden opportunity and released 8-track tape cleaning kits. These small kits contained brushes, sponges, sprays, and they promised to improve sound quality, remove dirt, and extend the lifespan of those precious tapes. The promise was simple: keep the tapes clean and they will last longer. However, the reality was that these kits rarely worked as advertised. People quickly realized they were just expensive gimmicks. Some brushes were too rough, the sprays were too sticky, and the sponges often did more harm than good. The harder you tried to clean your favorite Aerosmith recording, the more you accidentally damaged it with the very cleanser meant to protect it. In many cases, the cleaning agents left residue or scratched the delicate parts of the tape, actually accelerating wear and tear instead of preventing it. Demand for 8-track accessories quickly disappeared as the more compact cassette tapes began to dominate the market in the late 70s and early 80s. Cube Interactive TV. Sometimes, the best technology still fails if it is too complex or too expensive for the market's current needs. In 1977, Warner Cable made a bold attempt to revolutionize the way we watch TV with the Cube system. Viewers could press buttons on a special remote control to vote in live polls, choose how programs unfolded, or even influence what music video played next. This was a glimpse into the future, decades before streaming and smart TVs existed. It was so advanced that cable companies still struggle to offer similar features today. Although Cube's technology was cutting edge for its time, it came with a hefty price, both literally and figuratively. The system was expensive to install, often malfunctioned during operation, and frankly was a bit confusing and complicated for the average family who just wanted to relax. Cube launched in a few test markets. While some were fascinated by the possibilities, most found it too complex or unnecessary. High maintenance costs and lack of widespread adoption led to Cube's demise in the early 1980s. TV Hat. In an era before smartphones and streaming services, the TV Hat attempted to take personal entertainment to a new level. An awkward one. Launched in the late 70s, this bizarre invention combined a baseball cap with a small pouch holding a mini TV screen. The screen hung suspended right in front of your eyes, allowing you to watch your favorite shows hands-free, whether you were relaxing in the park, riding the bus, or even taking a walk. The concept sounded futuristic in theory. In practice, it was anything but cool. The TV hat looked utterly ridiculous, like something out of a low-budget sci-fi movie. Users had to squint at a tiny screen just inches from their face, which often resulted in eye strain and headaches and a rather uncomfortable viewing experience. The screen was low quality, grainy, and hard to see unless the lighting was perfect. Add to that the bulkiness of the hat and the tangled wires running down to the battery pack or portable tuner. You looked silly and embarrassing wearing this bulky hat in public. Dr. Scholl's sandals. Fashion and comfort couldn't coexist, and the promise of health could come with significant pain. You saw Dr. Scholl's sandals in 17 magazine, heard their distinctive clacking in school hallways, and you begged your mom to buy them. With natural leather and real wooden soles, they conveyed a health-conscious vibe. Buying them meant you were saying, "I care about my arches." They looked elegant and serious, a fashion dream for those pursuing a natural look. They were called Shaw exercise sandals, suggesting that simply walking in them was a form of exercise. But in reality, they were nicknamed luxury torture devices. Their wooden soles had absolutely no flexibility. If you stepped slightly off the edge of the sandal, the pain would shoot straight up your spine. Spraining your ankle was almost mandatory. And don't even think about walking fast. You needed to have your toes clamped shut like a vice grip just to keep them on your feet, turning normal walking into a continuous physical effort. For most of us, they were an injury waiting to happen. You must have been frustrated trying to maintain balance and grace while your toes were frantically clenching, turning you into a clumsy walker instead of a graceful magazine model. The Dorothy Hamill Cut. The Dorothy Hamill Cut was a cultural statement, a symbol of dynamism and victory in the 70s. When figure skater Dorothy Hamill won the gold medal, she spun, she flipped her hair, and she turned her wedge haircut into a national sensation. Suddenly, girls across America lined up at hair salons, carrying a photo of Hamill and having only one request: "Give me the Dorothy." The haircut looked stylish, athletic, and perfect, with cheekbones so sharp they could cut through her disco fog. It promised freedom and effortless style. However, for most people, this haircut was a gold medal mistake. Hamill had an entire team of professional makeup and hairstylists on call to keep every strand perfectly tucked under. But for the average teenager styling it herself in the bathroom mirror, the result was wildly different. That cute wedge shape required constant maintenance, the right head shape, and a blow dryer powerful enough to double as a jet engine to create the necessary volume. Imagine struggling with the blow dryer every morning, trying to achieve the perfect volume. And oh boy, if your hair decided to flip out instead of curling in correctly, you were stuck. You would look like a confused mushroom until it grew out. Brush rollers. Before ceramic curling irons or modern hair straighteners, brush rollers were the path to Farrah Fawcett's voluminous hair. You bought them, hoping to wake up looking gorgeous like a disco star. These were the medieval relics that teenagers voluntarily slept in. The process was simple but horrific. You tightly rolled your hair up, then secured them with sharp metal clips. Although you put all your hope in them, as the saying goes, nothing says good morning like a face full of plastic poking through your pillow. What greeted you in the morning? A sore scalp full of regrets. The result was often no curl at all, or worse, hair that looked like it had been attacked by a sheepdog. Although they promised a natural beauty, you might end up with tangled, uneven hair and a deep sense of disappointment. If you added a hairnet to hold them in place, you looked like you were preparing for bed on the Waltons. But back then, we believed beauty was pain, and we were ready to sacrifice a good night's sleep for an illusionary beauty dream. Sun-In. Wow, Sun-In promised that summer look. Sun-kissed golden locks without damage. Girls everywhere bought Sun-In, chasing sunshine in a bottle. The idea was you just sprayed it on, sat under the sun, and waited for the magic to happen. It sounded perfect for those who wanted the California blonde look without expensive and damaging bleach. Its smell was half lemon cleaner, half peroxide. It should have been a red flag from the start, but we were too desperate for that sun glow. But chemistry had its own plans, especially if you had brown, red, or any color hair that wasn't naturally California blonde. Sun-In created a generation of teenagers with splotchy, streaky orange hair. The hair looked as if it had just been attacked by a citrus press, Instead of brilliant gold, you received a rusty, dull color. It turned your locks into a rusty, dry, crispy mess. Ironically, the bottle forgot to mention it only worked if you actually lived in Malibu and had natural blonde genes. For users, it was a costly failure, forcing them to rush to find darker hair dye to hide their new traffic cone orange color. QT Quick Tanner. QT stood for Quick Tan. This lotion promised a healthy bronze glow without the sun. This was the solution for those who wanted a summer look without facing the risk of sunburn. Advertisements tried to convince consumers that this was a fast and safe way to get a tan look. But QT should have stood for questionable tint. Instead of bronze, it delivered a streaky, splotchy orange color. Specifically, your palms would turn bright orange, a clear sign of failure. The smell? It was like chemical pancake syrup and lingered for days, making you feel like you were walking around in an artificial pancake factory. If you applied too little, you'd miss spots. Apply too much, you looked like you had just rolled in BBQ sauce. And once it stained your knees or elbows, you couldn't scrub it off, leaving embarrassing patches of dark orange. Although modern self-tanning products are much more developed, QT was the predecessor, and it was a chaotic start that made many people regret their decision to chase a quick tan. Sauna Hot Pants. Hot pants, short shorts, were already a hot trend in the 1970s, but someone had the crazy idea to push this trend further and inflate them. Sauna hot pants were a bizarre combination of fashion and wishful thinking. These inflatable puffy shorts promised a miracle, melting away stubborn fat on the abdomen, hips, and thighs without dieting or exercising. The theory was that by retaining heat and making you sweat, the pants would target problem areas. You were advised to wear them while lying down watching TV, hoping to see your body shrink in just a few days. It sounded too good to be true, and it was. Although some companies jumped on the trend, they all failed miserably. Consumers quickly realized that heavy sweating didn't equate to actual fat loss. Wearing these inflatable shorts was both uncomfortable and useless. They looked like inflatable floaties for your thighs. And if you were a man, you probably also worried about whether something else you wanted to keep was also disappearing. Sauna hot pants are a humorous footnote in the history of bizarre weight loss gimmicks, proving that there are no shortcuts to staying fit. Downy Flake Toaster Eggs. In 1972, Downy Flake, a company famous for frozen breakfast items, decided to reinvent breakfast. Building on the success of quick, convenient items like Pop-Tarts, they introduced toaster eggs. The idea, a frozen egg patty that could be toasted in the toaster and ready to eat in minutes. It sounded like a convenient, quick solution for a hot breakfast. In reality, these things looked more like hockey pucks than food. They were too round, thick, and strangely dense, completely unappetizing. Consumers were wary of pre-cooked eggs from the start, and putting them through a toaster only made things weirder. Toaster eggs failed to score points on flavor, texture, or appearance. Imagine the feeling of biting into a slightly toasted frozen egg patty with its tough and dry texture. It was a bold experiment, but proved that breakfast innovation needs more than just convenience. It needs flavor and familiarity. Sales quickly plummeted, and just 3 years later, in 1975, they were pulled from the shelves, disappearing as quickly as they appeared. Sansui Quadraphonic Sound. In the early 1970s, home audio was a big deal, and while most people still used basic two-speaker setups, Sansui had a vision for more immersive sound. Sansui's 4-channel quadraphonic sound system promised to revolutionize music listening by providing sound from the front, back, left, and right. This was a completely new experience compared to traditional stereo sound. Other audio companies also joined in, even having setups that came with joystick controls, allowing users to control the sound around the room. Major artists like Aerosmith and Eric Clapton released special albums mixed for this 4-channel format. Although the technology was interesting and groundbreaking, it came with a huge barrier called cost. The system cost $200 at the time, which equates to about $1,200 today, adjusted for inflation. The biggest problem was that the average consumer was unwilling to upgrade their entire setup, including the receiver, discs, and 2 additional speakers just for a new sound experience. Adoption was slow, although today's digital technologies have achieved similar goals. By 1978, the 4-channel audio dream quietly faded as the music industry shifted toward digital recording. Out of the list above, which item impressed you the most? Share your biggest 70s fashion or beauty fail in the comments below. Polyester leisure suits. Leisure suits were a style icon of the 70s, especially for men. They had all the trendy elements: wide lapels, matching jackets and trousers, and vibrant, shiny colors that said, "I'm here to party in a sauna." They were made from 100% polyester, a material that looked sleek and promised effortless elegance for every occasion, from the bar to the disco floor. Before long, they were quickly nicknamed the sauna of style. Wearing them was like draping yourself in a plastic bag. Polyester, despite its glossiness, was completely non-breathable. You would sweat just by looking at them. And if you dared to dance under the hot disco lights, you were essentially wearing a slow cooker, accumulating unbearable heat. They came in colors ranging from baby blue to burnt orange and were shiny enough to reflect the disco ball, but their thickness blocked every breeze. They were non-breathable, immobile, and literally the wearer couldn't move comfortably due to the rising temperature. Betamax. When Sony launched Betamax in 1975, they seemed like the winner. It was one of the first home video formats and offered superior image and sound resolution, much better than the bulky VHS tape. In fact, the quality was so good that broadcasters and production studios continued to use Betamax tapes for professional work well into the 2000s. But despite the excellent technology, Sony made one fatal mistake. They kept it to themselves. Sony refused to license the Betamax format to other electronics companies. That meant fewer Betamax manufacturers and fewer movie titles released in that format. Just 1 year later, in 1976, JVC introduced VHS. Although the quality wasn't as sharp, JVC was more flexible. They licensed VHS to any company that wanted to participate. The result? Betamax's dominance vanished almost overnight. Its market share dropped from 100% in 1975 to just 10% by 1988. Betamax lost the format war, not because it was technologically inferior, but because it chose the closed path. Polaroid Polavision. Polaroid was once the king of instant photography in the 70s, with cameras like the SX70 and one-step beloved everywhere. Capitalizing on that success, Polaroid decided to jump into the world of home movies in 1977, hoping to compete with Kodak. They introduced the Polavision system, which used a unique film cartridge resembling a mini video cassette. After shooting, you could develop the footage within minutes using a special tabletop viewer device. Despite the unique technology, the system failed. The image quality was weak and faded. You had to shoot in super bright light, or the results would be dark and blurry. The colors were dull, not vibrant as advertised. Most importantly, unlike Kodak's Super 8 cameras, Polavision could not record sound. For home movies, sound was a critical factor for preserving memories, and this lack of flexibility was a major deal breaker. Sales never picked up, and Polaroid retreated in 1979. Today, you can find Polavision equipment on eBay for next to nothing. Which of these products do you think was truly ahead of its time, even though it failed? Let this nostalgia community be the place where we keep these great memories alive together. A IDS diet candy. Yes, the product was called AIDS. These small, block-shaped candies with a mysterious chocolate flavor were packaged in luxurious boxes and promised to curb your appetite with a scientifically sounding ingredient. You were instructed to take one piece before a meal with a cup of hot water, and then somehow forget about dinner. This was an attempt to turn dieting into a snack, a novelty at the time. In reality, it tasted like old Tootsie Rolls dipped in perfume. If you managed to endure swallowing one, you might eat a slightly smaller dinner, or simply have lost your appetite entirely because of the awful flavor. The biggest issue, of course, was that the unfortunate name has not aged well over time. When the AIDS pandemic broke out in the 1980s, the brand faced a problem no marketing team could fix. It quickly disappeared from the market, becoming one of the most unfortunate and tragically named products of all time. Swing bike. In 1975, the swing bike emerged as a novelty run. It wasn't your ordinary bicycle. Designed and patented by Ralph Belden, this bike had two steering points, one at the front and one at the rear below the saddle. This allowed you to steer both wheels independently, creating quirky S-shaped turns. This bike was for impressing, demonstrating, not for regular commuting like a circus performance. Although it looked cool, it was not easy to control. The dual steering system made the bike extremely unstable for beginners, and very many riders ended up falling or wiping out. This unpredictability and risk of injury meant it never gained widespread adoption. Imagine trying to perform a majestic S-swerve, but ending up hitting the ground face first. The inherent instability of the swing bike turned it from an attention-grabbing toy into a playground hazard. AMC Pacer. When the AMC Pacer hit the market in 1975, it was advertised as the car of the future. With large curved windows and a rounded, bubble-like body, it looked unlike any other car on the road. AMC wanted to create a car that was compact yet spacious inside, feeling like a large vehicle. People quickly nicknamed it the fishbowl on wheels. This unique design came with many burdens. The Pacer was too heavy, especially for a compact car, making it sluggish and fuel inefficient. This was anathema during the fuel crisis of the 70s. The rounded, futuristic shape didn't appeal to everyone. Many just found it odd. Although the spacious interior was impressive and it gained a small fan base, especially after appearing in the movie Wayne's World, it wasn't enough to save its sales and poor performance. The Pacer struggled with sales, and production stopped in 1980. It was a bold experiment in car design, a car that dared to be different but failed to deliver on its promises of efficiency and widespread acceptance. Smell-O-Vision revivals. The idea of Smell-O-Vision always sounded like something out of a science fiction movie. After its first appearance in the 60s, the 1970s saw bizarre attempts to revive this technology. The goal was to create a fully immersive movie-watching experience by pumping scents into movie theaters or even homes to match what was happening on screen. Imagine the smell of popcorn during a concession scene or the scent of sea breeze during a beach scene. It sounded wonderful, but in reality, the technology was unreliable. Smells often arrived too early, too late, or not at all. Worse, once the smells were released, they lingered and didn't dissipate. Imagine sitting through a dramatic romantic scene while the room still reeked of chili dogs from 2 scenes earlier. Audiences were more distracted than entertained, and theater owners were less than thrilled about installing complex equipment that didn't work well. Smell-O-Vision quickly faded by the late 70s, proving that people still preferred watching stories unfold with their eyes and ears rather than their nose, avoiding the risk of old food smells ruining a climax. World Football League, WFL. In 1974, the World Football League stepped onto the field as a bold competitor, aiming to challenge and even replace the National Football League. With big dreams and even bigger promises, the WFL aimed to build an international football empire. The league launched with 13 teams spread across the United States, including a team in Honolulu, Hawaii. But things quickly fell apart. Despite the name World Football League, it never expanded outside U.S. borders. The league suffered from poor attendance, running out of money, and many players not being paid on time. Even the star athletes lured away from the NFL by huge contracts were trapped in a financial mess. The WFL barely completed its first season in 1974. The second season in 1975 was cut short when the league collapsed mid-season. The dream of global football dominance crumbled in less than 2 years, proving that ambition doesn't always equal success. Bell Picture Phone. Back in the 1960s, Bell Telephone dreamed of the future of communication. At the 1964 World's Fair, they debuted the Model 1 picture phone, a concept that allowed you to see the person you were talking to. The concept felt like something out of science fiction. a glimpse of the video calls we see today. By 1970, Bell launched the first commercial version of the picture phone. However, the only and fatal issue was the cost. It came with an astronomical price tag. You had to pay $160 per month, and that wasn't including the per-minute calling charges. After adjusting for inflation, that figures over $1,200 today, even if you didn't make any calls. Imagine, a huge living expense just for the ability to see the caller. Furthermore, it was only designed for one-on-one conversations with no group chat or very limited conferencing. With its prohibitive cost and limited features, the picture phone failed quickly. Although Bell attempted to release Model 2 in targeted businesses, neither version succeeded. Ford Pinto. The Ford Pinto launched in 1971, just as the US was dealing with the oil crisis. With a cheap price, lightweight, and fuel-efficient, the Pinto was marketed as the perfect solution for cost-conscious drivers. Ford viewed the Pinto as the savior of the 70s. Behind that affordable price was a deadly design flaw. The Pinto's fuel tank was placed in a vulnerable position at the rear of the car. In low-speed rear-end collisions, it had a tendency to rupture and explode. The most shocking part was that internal Ford documents later revealed that the company knew about this danger but made a cold calculation. They concluded that the cost of paying legal compensation for deaths and injuries would be less expensive than fixing the design flaw on millions of cars. When the truth was exposed, the public was outraged. The Pinto quickly became a symbol of corporate negligence. Consumer trust plummeted, and this scandal was one of the biggest PR disasters of the decade, making it one of the most notorious failures. Thank you for joining us and reminiscing about these forgotten relics. Don't forget to subscribe to the Back to Yesterday channel and share this video with friends from the same era to help us continue preserving these valuable memories.